Have you ever felt jealous? Have you ever felt like you wanted someone else's life so bad that you were willing to burn down their life? Have you ever done anything that made you feel so ashamed that you wanted to run away and never be seen again? Well, Genesis chapter 4 has a story about a man named Cain that you might relate with. And that's what we're talking about this week.
Kindred UMC live show features adults discussing adult topics, occasionally with adult language. It may not be suitable for young viewers. Please use discretion before watching.
Hello all, I almost said the Matt pastor. My name is Chris Hayden. I am the pastor at Kindred UMC, and this is our pre-recorded live show coming to you not live, but pre-recorded from Kindred Studio A, aka my front room. And I already said I'm the pastor. Here.
I'm Ann, and I'm the treasurer for Kindred UMC.
I'm Preston, and I think that's it.
It sounded like you said you're Prestoned.
I have been Preston.
You've been Prestoned.
If you're trying to get a smoke smell out of your house, just do it, because
Activated charcoal.
The guy activated charcoal, and the guy that comes to come and fix your problem that you thought was going to bring a $1,000 machine to fix it will just bring the same thing you've already had, and that's it.
That's a true story from real life, coming straight to you from
Today.
the reality of realities, Preston.
Yes.
So we are continuing our look at the beginning, the first 11 chapters of Genesis, and we did. Does anybody know what we've done so far?
If it's the first
Pop
11,
quiz.
If it's the first 11 chapters,
Yeah.
The first 2 are the creation story. Third chapter is
Close.
first 3 chapters of the creation story, and Adam and Eve.
Stories.
Okay.
Uh,
Chapter
So the
1's one story. Chapter 2's another story.
Chapter 2 and 3.
okay.
Then there's Noah,
So, but what are the first stories?
the creation of the world.
So,
and man.
in the beginning,
There was creation of 7 days and man.
yeah, 7 days.
Oh.
That's
Yeah.
chapter 1, 7 days, and then the second creation story is
Man and woman.
man, and thank you. You've been paying attention. Some might call it Adam. Some more ignorant and less informed people might call it Adam and Eve, but it's actually man and woman. Either is fine. I'm only kidding. Please don't unsubscribe. Yes. So chapter 1 is the 7 days of creation, where God speaks everything into existence, and then it culminates with the creation of man and woman. Let us make humanity in our image, male and female. And then the next 2 chapters, the second creation story, 2 and 3, are the Adam and Eve story, the Garden of Eden. The serpent tempts humanity, and then they eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. They eat from the fruit of the tree of the knowledge. It's so many ofs. And now we're looking at immediately what happens after they commit this transgression and are kicked out of the Garden of Eden. This is Genesis chapter 4, verses 1 through 16. It's traditionally called the story of Cain and Abel. I'm going to call it the story of Cain, because Abel doesn't really matter. Abel is more like an object in the story than a character.
That's what you get anyway, Abel. Who said that?
What? How dare you? So here, it sounds like this. This is from the NRSV, chapter 4, verses 1 through 16. Now the man, and that's Adam in that particular translation, not Is. Now Adam knew his wife Eve, and she conceived and bore Cain, saying, I have produced a man with the help of the Lord. The word Cain in Hebrew, it's derived from Cana, which means to produce, to make or create or to get, or, So she's basically saying, I have Caned a Cain. And that's why his name is Cain. With the help of the Lord. Next, she bore his brother Abel. Abel, the word means vapor or nothingness, which is also a clue into what the writer's intentions for this story are going to be.
That's terrifying.
So who is birthed is created and nothing, like the opposite of created.
Yeah.
So, okay. So Cain and Abel. So now Abel was a keeper of sheep and Cain a tiller of the ground. In the course of time, Cain brought to the Lord an offering of the fruit of the ground, and Abel, for his part, brought of the firstlings of his flock, their fat portions. And the Lord had regard for Abel and his offering, but for Cain and his offering he had no regard. So Cain was very angry, and his countenance fell. So Cain, the created, and Abel, the nothing, have both produced offerings. One is like herd, one is probably sheep or goat or whatever, and the other is like tilling the ground, crops, vegetables, the typical. God seems to like Abel's nothings offering more than created's offering. And there's no real reason why. It just says God likes that one more. So he accepts this one, rejects that one.
Are there any historical things saying what favor means?
No.
Okay.
Yeah,
just asking.
Well, we're actually going to get into the nature of. So a lot of. Give me a sec. We're going to come.
Okay.
We're going to come back to it. Yeah. So the flock, but for Cain and his offering he had no regard. So Cain was very angry, and his countenance fell. The Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry, and why is your countenance fallen? If you do well, will you not be accepted? If you do not do well, sin is lurking at your door, and its desire is for you, but you must master it." Cain said to his brother Abel, "Let us go out to the field." And when they were in the field, Cain rose up against his brother Abel and killed him. Now you see why I say Abel is basically just an object. He doesn't even have a line in the script. Like, he doesn't get to say anything. He just gets to die. He makes an offering and then he dies. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Where is your brother Abel?" And he said, "I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper?" And the Lord said, "What have you done? Listen, your brother's blood is crying out to me from the ground, and now you are cursed from the ground, which has opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you till the ground, it will no longer yield to you its strength. You will be a fugitive and a wanderer on the earth." Cain said to the Lord, "My punishment is greater than I can bear. Today you have driven me away from the soil, and I shall be hidden from your face." Take note that God never said anything about hiding face or God doesn't remove God's self from Cain.
No, it's a human reaction.
But Cain says, "You will be hidden from my face now." He's like, okay, that's new. "I shall be a fugitive and a wanderer on the earth, and anyone who meets me may kill me." Then the Lord said to him, "Not so. Whoever kills Cain will suffer a sevenfold vengeance." And the Lord put a mark on Cain, so that no one who came upon him would kill him. Then Cain went away from the presence of the Lord and settled in the land of Nod, east of Eden. Again, note the Cain went away from the presence of the Lord, not the other way around. So before we get into the nitty-gritty, let me just address something that's a bit of an elephant in the room that we need to just be aware of and acknowledge. Traditionally, this language of the mark of Cain has been used as a tool for racism and slavery and oppression and Jim Crow. So racist people who are trying to control black people would claim that the mark of Cain was making black people's skin black as opposed to like Anglo-European. And they would use that as a justification for, and that's why we must control this population and master them, and they must serve us because they earned it. Let's just all acknowledge, of course that's not true. Anyone who says that is, I'm not allowed to swear, but you get the idea. It's wrong. It's not only factually and historically wrong, but it's also morally and ethically wrong. So don't believe that and don't cooperate with
Sounds like a sales pitch by idiots.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't make sense either for what we just said. Like, he turned away And
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
So like none of it makes any sense
You're
at
right.
all.
Yeah, it's
Like,
it's somebody deciding what they want and then justifying it later by like proof texting and eisegetical. Yeah, it's wrong. It's completely wrong. But
sounds
I don't
like-
want to get caught up on it because I want to talk about other things.
Yes.
I was gonna say it sounds like 98% of civilization.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the themes that are going on here. So, first of all, the names of Cain and Abel are created and nothingness. So there's something going on there. Like the writer's not an idiot. What do you make of the God accepts Abel's offering of, essentially the fat of the herd, and Cain's offering he rejects. The crops, the vegetation that's grown.
It smells humany.
What do you mean?
It smells like a human's eyes have seen his sacrifice was favored more than mine for something burned a different way, or something was we got rain when the fat was burned and not when the crops were given, or something is off.
Yep. What do you make?
There's like when you've got two kids and one like didn't necessarily do anything wrong, but they seem to always get like the short end of the stick. Like they're willing to just let the other one win the game or whatever. It's like the parent giving them the gold star. Oh, you always get nothing, so like I'm gonna give you this whatever it is. You get the reward, you get the ice cream, and he doesn't because you were a good kid today, and he always gets the ice cream. Whatever. It just seems like playing even, maybe.
Duality, I think, is a huge word. There can't just be everything for everybody. Somebody's got to get the short. There are two ends of the stick. And one end I actually don't know how this works. One end is longer and one end is shorter. But
it's like the wishbone.
Like maybe it's cutting the stick, I think is where it
Well, the
comes
long
from.
end of the stick is the one that you can hold on to stronger, and the short end is the one that I have no idea what I'm talking about. I think you're historically a lot of people have tried to make a lot of hay out of there must be something about we need to learn what is acceptable about the one offering and not the other one. And I'm not alone here. Walter Brueggemann, noted theologian, also agrees with me. To me, the point is the writer doesn't make a point of why one is accepted and why the other one's rejected. And I think that's on purpose. And I think kind of what you were both saying, there is something that's inherently arbitrary about what's going on. God liked this one and not that one. And doesn't that happen to all of us,
Yeah.
Doesn't that seem to happen to all of us? So the ancient idea of sacrifice is, because they're all just trying to get their crops to grow, they're all trying to feed all humanity was just trying to feed itself and like reproduce and like survive and
Still
be safe.
happening.
Yeah. And like that's kind of the core thing. And so the relationship with the gods was, the dog is snoring. If I will offer something that pleases you, then you'll send rain. Or if I offer something that pleases you, then we'll have lots of babies in the herd, in the flock, And so like what if I take some meat and burn it and it'll rise up because I'm barbecuing it and it'll rise up and then we'll eat it and it'll be like an offering and then there's a bunch of babies that season. It's like, oh, God likes that. Let's keep doing that. And then of course, because it's all random actually, what ends up happening is you like, oh, now we didn't have a good season. Maybe I'll give my daughter instead. Like and there's a lot of steps in between that, but that's kind of the way that it's going. And a lot of the Old Testament is essentially a treatise against that kind of thinking, where we're just going to constantly escalate our sacrifices in order to please the gods. Abel gets that favor. Cain, who brings, then I'll bring my crops and we'll burn them and send them to God, and then there's not a good harvest. And that's because that's how they would have known whether or not God accepts or rejects the offering. So there's not a good harvest that year, and it's arbitrary. There's nothing about it that's bad. And this is one of the important lessons of the Old Testament, is that God does not favor people because of sacrifices or not. And so there's no point in escalating our sacrifices. Like, that's one of the original writer's intents in the Old Testament.
Wasn't that redone in the New Testament? A few times, but one of the biggest parables was...
It's one of the most important threads throughout the entire Bible.
The lady gives the last coin she has.
Yes. The widow's mite.
Yeah, compared to others giving.
Yes. It's not, It's not about let us sacrifice things that we need in order to please God. It's about God is in love with creation. Like, God loves creation. There's nothing you can do that would make God hate creation. Like, that's the message. And so Cain, who doesn't know this lesson, is upset that God seems to like one offering and not the other, and then takes matters into his own hands in the worst possible way. And the warning, I think the key to this whole scripture is the warning before Cain kills Abel, which is, if you do well, you'll be accepted. And if you don't do well, be careful. Because sin, and the writer personifies sin in this beast-like metaphor. Sin is lurking at your door and it wants to devour you. Its desire is to have you.
I'm good.
And you must master that experience. And you can almost hear in the background God's, like the writer through God saying, things aren't going to work out all the time. It's not in your control. But if you desire to control everything all the time, then it will ultimately end up controlling you. You have to master that feeling. You have to learn how to grieve the loss. You have to learn to make peace with sometimes things don't work out. Like, that's, to me, that is the key of this text. So I want to know, and I had kind of two different questions that I think apply to most of us. One is, have you ever been really jealous? Have you ever seen things working out for somebody that you're like, why them? Or on the opposite end, have you ever been ashamed of something you did and not know, and like felt like you wanted to run away and hide your face and just like, no, God, you can just stay here and I'll go away forever. Either one of those, I think, applies very humanly to this story. Like, what experiences come to mind?
I can say both, truthfully. The most recent time that I got like green jealous, nasty, was when I was trying to get pregnant.
Yeah.
Because I was watching people.
That makes sense.
Chemically jealous.
Oh, I was watching people, and like, it sounds so awful, but like, they were getting it and I wanted it.
I think it's so important to acknowledge that, like, what you're saying. I think a lot of people feel awful.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people have that exact experience.
Yes.
And so there's this thing of like, if a lot of us are experiencing this, then let's go ahead and just make peace with the fact that this is an expression of humanity.
Yeah. Like, don't let it be the elephant in the room. Because it's tough watching it, and it's like, you almost feel like, why did you get it, not me? Like, you weren't ready for this, and you got it.
You suck. You're going to be a terrible mom.
And you don't want to say that. But, like, sometimes you're thinking it.
I'd be such a better mom than you.
Yeah. And now that I'm doing it, I'm like, no, everybody, you did great today.
But isn't that that's the whole Cain story?
Yeah.
I've done everything right.
Yeah.
I followed every single rule you told me to do. I feel slighted.
I think that's the heart of the Cain story.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Yeah, for
like,
sure.
I know I've been there. I've watched several. I mean, for me, it's career stuff. I've watched several people, to me, in my humble opinion, be terrible at their job and succeed. I'm like, that you're only promoting that person because they're willing to lie to you.
Yeah.
You're just accepting their face value lies, and it's hurting our whole system. Like, what are you doing? I'm so much better than they are. Why aren't I? That's where it comes up for me.
Yeah, but then is it spun wrong? Are you seeing success in the way you're supposed to be seeing it? Or are you seeing success in the, I see this as successful and they achieved what I think I should? However, there's a nice lighter succession that maybe you're misjudging.
Yeah, what you're getting at.
We're misjudging. Excuse me,
Yeah,
because
exactly.
It's not one.
Yeah.
I'd say 100% of us. I'm gonna go on a limb and say probably all of us.
At some point,
Yeah.
right? If you live long enough, you're gonna encounter this. It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And I think that's exactly it. To me, this story is inviting us. It's a cautionary tale, first of all. So our protagonist fails. It's a tragedy.
Right.
But it's a cautionary tale to warn us against this type of stuff. The idea that if we are faithful, everything works out. That's what this scripture is against. It's kind of like the opposite of prosperity gospel. You know,
Right.
like prosperity gospel kind of says, if you do everything right, then God will be for you. But then it also has this fun little caveat where it says, yeah, but if you do everything right, then the devil's going to come for you. So when it doesn't work out, that's the devil. And when it does work out, that's because you're doing what I told you. Like, and this offers a deeper theology that says you can be doing everything right and still things don't work out because life can feel arbitrary. The judgment of life can feel arbitrary. It's not, and the gospel of this, the good news of this, is that it's in God's response to Cain's complete and utter rage-filled, murderous failure. God's response to Cain is, hey, what's going on? Right. And Cain's response to God is, you'll never look at me the same. And God says, whoa. I'm going to protect you. You're fine. You're not out of the covenant. You're not out of my care. You're not out of my love. I'm going to give you a mark that says no one can touch you. You are mine. And Cain says, I'm leaving anyway. And God says, well, take the mark with you. I mean, like, that's not literally what's going on in the story, but that's effectively what's going on.
I think
in
you
the
left
story.
out a big point of the over self-shaming of Cain. Initially, what did you do? I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
In the back of his head, I'm gonna have to have a real good backstory for this, or I can over-shame him, and then he's just gonna, fall out and cry and you're my boy and blah blah blah, and it doesn't happen, and so he re-shames on top of it. You're not even going to look at me anymore. There's no way you even think about me in the first. And God
remains faithful. God
brushes
remains
all of
true.
it away. Yeah.
God stays true to the promises that He made to Adam and Eve, or dare I say, man and woman, and that covenantal relationship stays true even in the face of murder. Like, the good news of this is that God remains faithful in light of humanity's failure and inability to remain faithful. And also, I think it's like I said earlier, it's a cautionary tale about expecting faithfulness to result in a perfect life. It doesn't. It never will, and it was never designed to do that. But in the midst of an imperfect life and an imperfect response, in fact, a horrible failure of a response, God still remains loving and faithful and gracious. That's the story of Cain. Like, that's the whole point of Cain. There's nothing you can do. Very early on in the scriptures, nothing you can do will ever separate you from the love and grace of God.
What did you say Kainos meant again?
Cain means created or produced.
Okay.
Made. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cain.
There's a point.
Yeah. Right.
Why would I do this to something
I made you in the image, let us make humanity in our image, let us make these delightful, lovely creatures who are going to completely screw it up, and let us do it with love and grace. Like that, it's good news. It's really good news. There's nothing you can do that will ever separate you from the love and grace of God. So we're well over time, but I don't care. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace.